I hated my current existence. And so I think some people like don't hate their current existence enough. You either have to really believe that this thing's going to happen, or you have to know that your life sucks. And I knew that my life sucked. And so I knew that if I did something else, it would have a higher likelihood of changing my life than not doing something.
So many people want to project their idea of what they think your life should be like onto you. And it's just completely irrelevant. It just doesn't matter. You are going to die and you're not going to matter. And I'm going to die and I'm not going to matter. So why do I care about what you're going to say when you're not even going to show up to my funeral? Who gives a shit?
Never delude yourself. Like, there are so many more people who need that message than people who are hating that message. And she was like, and if you're actually going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives, there's going to be an equal and opposing force of people who want to reject that. The diluted down version all of a sudden becomes everyone else's stuff. So no matter who you are, you're going to be disliked, period. Because no one's liked by everyone. So we just have to, like, listen, if we can accept that as a premise, right? No one's gonna be liked by everyone. You might as well be disliked for being you than being somebody else.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
At the most basic level.
Yeah.
The being disliked is a fixed cost. I think it is far better to be disliked for being who you are than loved for someone you're not.
I'm actually going to reverse quote David Goggins on this one. But I love this quote that he has, which he says, "There's no shortcuts for you, David," or "There's no shortcuts for you, Goggins." I heard him say that, and I just love that as a refrain, which is that a lot of people look for a shortcut. But the idea that you say, like, they're not for you, you don't get to use them. You are immune to shortcuts. I just love it because then it just further shortcuts the path to the work that needs to get done. Like, I've never regretted working harder, ever. Not once. And some people are like, on your deathbed, you're gonna, like, no, because I lived every moment of my day doing what I wanted to do. I obviously am somebody who always wants to optimize how much work I do per unit of time. And so I was, there was definitely times earlier in my life I was really romanticized by these like very extensive morning routines and supplement rituals and like all this stuff of mental masturbation around the work that needed to be done. But when I looked at 2 hours later and nothing had actually gotten done, the moment you begin working is when your output per unit of time goes up. And so that makes beginning the single greatest hack that you can have for everything else that you do in work. Because the thing is, when you start working, you start getting in the mood to work, right? Like everything else is procrastinating around the work that you think you should do. But like, I have noticed, for me at least, I have some big mental tasks, you know what I mean? Like big content piece or big thing that you need, like, it's going to take real mental effort. It takes me like 5 minutes of actually being in it to then get a little bit of a lay of the land to then get into it. But I used to take hours to delay to start the first 5 minutes. And so my time compression of when I thought I should start doing something and when I started doing it, over time it's just compressed to the point where it's like the moment I think that I need to start doing it, sometimes I just start it, because then what happens, I get this open loop. And so rather than complete work at because a lot of people are like, I want to complete it at this really nice clean point. Stop halfway through the sentence, because it'll drive you mad. My first boss after college, she said this thing. I had a particularly good weekend. And she said, I'm pretty sure happiness is stringing as many of those days in a row as you possibly can. And although I hated the job, that piece of advice has actually been probably has been my blueprint for how to live, which is like my birthday looks the same as my Tuesdays, which looks the same as my Sundays. And when I think about the days that I look back on at the end of my day and think like today was a good day, invariably it's the same few things. I worked very hard on something that I felt was worth doing. I worked out and I spent time with people that I enjoyed being around. If I do those three things, I had a good day. Most people's definition of work is a negative one, which is why they abhor it, which is also why they misunderstand so many people who quote, I'll say quote here, are successful or ahead of them or whatever, is that both people, one person says the word work and the other person hears the word pain. The first step to like becoming more successful is understanding the language that the people who are successful are using. They're actually defining the word differently. Whatever that thing is that you actually enjoy doing, where you lose track of time when you're in it, even if it's challenging, but usually it is challenging, right? Like it's not easy because then it's boring, right? Which is also why the uncertainty thing is so key, right? To not knowing if it's gonna work or not. You are gonna work though, either way. Is that the people who are quote addicted to work make it easy to be addicted to work because they do things worth doing. And I think a lot of it is coming down to making sure that you take the few precious seconds that we have to do the few things that are worth doing for the rest of your life.
I'm a big fan of being directionally correct rather than absolutely correct. And so I think what happens is most people are trying to find the perfect answer when they have no perspective from which to make a judgment. They're trying to find the perfect thing to do when they haven't done anything. So how would you have perspective to make a judgment? Like, if you try a lot of things in the beginning, which you have to know what your inputs, outputs are, decrease your action threshold enough with either a cheese or a cat, whatever you need. Most people have more cats than they have cheese in the beginning. So use the cat to start running towards something. And the thing is the rat, it's so simple. It's like there's cheese here. But what you really just need to know is that there's cheese out there. And there's a cat behind me for sure. And so if I just go anywhere away from the cat, I will have a higher likelihood of getting closer to the cheese. Not that I will find it, but I will get closer to it. And I think and I've lived my life through a series of rapid iterations, not trying to pick the right thing. Because I just even when I started my first business, I was between frozen yogurt, test prep, and a gym. Why were those the things? I was like, well, I was pretty good at taking tests in college, so I get that. I like frozen yogurt. And I mean, it sounds simple, but I was like, everybody likes something, right? And I actually didn't know that I was gonna like business. That's the crazy thing. Because also, when you and I were younger, Instagram wasn't there. YouTube, none of this shit existed. And entrepreneurship wasn't cool yet. And so I just hated my job a lot. And I hated where I lived a lot. And so I was like, well, I will just not be here. So cat, don't know what city I'm gonna go to, but just not this city.
Yep.
I went across the furthest place from Baltimore, which is California. And then I was like, okay, well, what do I hate doing? Well, let me not do that, which is, sitting on meetings all day and doing whatever, doing grunt work for shit that I felt like was meaningless. And instead, I was like, I'll do fitness because I like fitness. And I was like, at the very least, I'll do something I enjoy, which I liked fitness at the time. And if you're like, well, I don't like doing anything. Well, it's like, well, then that's impossible because your brain is wired to be rewarded for things. And so you are doing things that reward you. That's why you do them. Like everything we do is because we've been rewarded for doing things like that in the past. And we project the same activities and we predict that doing things like we did in the past that reward us will reward us again in the future. That's where our behavior comes from. And so it's like, okay, well, what has rewarded you in the past? Where's the cat? Go the opposite way.
I think negative motivation is poo-pooed too much. Like if you are angry, use it. If you are sad, use it. Because what else are you gonna do with it? You might as well let it help you, or it uses you. You know what I mean? I know that I don't like this. And so this way is not where I am. And so I will start taking steps this way.
Business ideas typically come from one of three Ps. So it comes from a pain that you're currently experiencing, a past profession, so the thing that you just quit or some of the jobs that you just quit, or passion. So something that you're inherently interested in that you would spend your time doing anyways. Some skill that you learned while you were in the workforce, which by the way, is one of the most proven ways of making money because the economy has already showed you that people are willing to exchange money for that specific job. And then pain is usually, I think, in some ways, sometimes one of the biggest drivers is like you had an eating allergy and you couldn't find pancakes that dealt with your specific eating allergy. And you bet that there's a decent amount of other people with that allergy that also like pancakes. And so then you make pancakes that are delicious and amazing that also cater to people with that food allergy. And then all of a sudden, you have a business based on pain. Deep knowledge of the prospect is paramount or very important for creating exceptional products. And you can either do that by doing a ton of research or by being the prospect. When I was in 8th grade, it was the first year that I started really noticing I couldn't breathe at night. And so I learned how to fall asleep with my hand on my face like this so that my nostril would, so I could fall asleep and my hand would stay. Because there's no actually other, because you can't hold your, because you fall asleep, right? And so if I fall asleep with my hand like this, right? Like I'm on the couch and I fall asleep like that, it keeps my nostril open and I can fall asleep and it doesn't move. And so that's how I learned how to sleep for years before founding just simple nasal strips and things like that. But there's tons of problems with those solutions that exist right now. I've tried every product that exists on Amazon. I've tried all the ones from foreign countries. Every fan or follower who sends me a product that is a nasal company that's new, I will try the product. I still do. And there's yet to be one that has truly solved it. If you want to be compelling, a demonstration or a model is always more compelling than anything else. And so me even going through that entire narrative, right, is taking everyone else who's been listening to this on some journey. It's like, if you want to make a compelling pitch for a business, it's like, we pretty much just kind of went through one. And so that's really what it comes down to. It's like, well, what do I do with my business? It's like, create your narrative of why you're even doing this. And if you can explain to somebody why they should care about this problem, or more specifically, why you care about this problem, I'll tell you this, more investors will, like, I might be like, I don't care about kitchen utensils, but this girl certainly does. And I'm sure there's other women who do too. And what everyone wants to see is obsession. And unfortunately, in like some of the world, I know more in the UK than the US now, like that kind of perspective of like just being all in obsessed with stuff has almost been like bastardized, or like, been chastised. But the people who are obsessed are the ones who change the world, at least change their world. And I think that, so a very close friend of mine did all the Olympic teams, nutrition and supplementation stuff for a country overseas. And he said, you know the difference between champions and everyone else? And I was like, what? He said, everyone always looks at them and says, what do champions have that I don't have? And he said, they have it backwards. He said, it's what do champions not have that I have? It's what do they lack? And it's an off button. They just don't stop. And so in dealing with the gold medals, he's like, they just never stop. They just can't stop. Everything in their life is geared towards one goal. And so finding that thing, and they approach everything in their life that way. And I think that that level of obsession around like everything that you touch on a daily basis is required for really getting to where you want to go. If basically pain created an obsession, and for some reason you also are doing something like that in your work, like I feel like the likelihood that you don't succeed is almost nothing. You only need one of those three. You just pick one. Like if you just had one pain that you had that you wanted to overcome, or one passion that you were just inherently interested in, because sometimes passion has nothing to, like you might just be really into model cars. It's okay, well, there's a lot of businesses that you can build around model cars. It's like you can manufacture model cars. You can have services around model cars, making them faster because some people race model cars. You can be a collector and start flipping model cars. Like you can just make media around how to build them and then have a media company around it. Like there's so many different components of any obsession or interest that you can make. I think in the game of attention, it's trying to find what is unique, right? And so how do you quote stand out when everyone's loud? And this is gonna sound trite, but your fingerprint is unique, literally from a biological perspective, but so is your life and your experiences. And so there's real alpha or benefit to be had above normal level of effort by leaning into you. And so what makes every person unique is what makes their content unique. And so trying to be like, oh, I wanna make content like Alex is probably not the best way to do it, because you're not gonna beat me at being me, but you'll beat me at being you. And so it's basically your flavor of media. So like for me, it's like, what is, my brand to model this? It's like, well, I have elements of philosophy that are in my brand. Well, do I need that? No, but that's like kind of me. I obviously talk a ton about business, marketing and sales, promotion, conversion. Those are all things that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And so a lot of my content's about that. Fitness is a component of my life. And so there's light sprinkling of fitness in my content. Also, I come from a background of fitness with Gym Launch and the companies that I owned before that. And so that would make sense that, and my wife Layla, and so that's sprinkled in. And so like, those are basically the components of my life. And so that's what kind of shines through in my content. I consume a ton of comedy. And so sometimes you'll see some dry humor and dark humor that shines through, but that's me. Now you have all of those little buckets of you. And not only are those buckets unique, but also the proportions of those buckets will be different. And so maybe your philosophy is way bigger, or maybe fitness part is way bigger. But I think what makes the truly unique personal trainer fitness brand is leaning into people being interested in you for being you. And then being like, by the way, I have fitness stuff if you want to buy it from me. And I think the key part is the vast majority of products and services are commoditized. You're probably not going to be significantly better than other trainers, just being real. You probably aren't. But you will be different than them. And we want to lean on, I want to buy fitness from somebody, and so I might as well buy it from her, or I might as well buy it from him. So you're taking basically the audience that would buy from anyone, but your brand premium gets them to want to buy it from you. If we think about Prime, for example, with the drink company, like it's a drink that there's other products that already exist in the marketplace that satisfy the same thing as Prime. But if you are agnostic to that brand and you have brand affinity with that creator, then you're like, well, then if I have two things that are basically equal and I just like this guy better, I'm just gonna, as long as the prices are comparable, I'll just vote with my dollars here. And so I think that if you're a personal trainer in 2025, It's going to be long term, it's going to be building the content. Short term, it's going to be outreach to people that you know and making a compelling offer to get people to try to work with you.
In order to learn a skill, you want to have as much exposure as you can to repeat the action. And then you want quick feedback loops so that you can learn what you did wrong. So the perfect scenario would be mentor, mentee, repeated exposure, fix this, try again, fix this, try again. And in sales, if you can survive that long, then you are good enough that you will have gotten enough feedback. Like for most people, if they can weather the first 3 months of sales, then they'll usually be fine. And so for the people who are coming up, I always tell them, like, go shadow the best guy and do twice the volume he's doing, because you're not as good as him. So like, do twice the volume that they're doing, work all of the hours, and you will get better faster because you have to suck for X period of time. And so if you can condense how long that takes you in terms of calendar days, not hours, you can get there faster. But I think that it's important because, one, you have to learn how to get rejected and still keep going. And I think that's a very valuable skill. It's funny because a lot of us want traits, right? We want to be patient. We want to be humble. We want to be, long suffering, whatever words you want to use. But in order to, if I would say, hey, how would you if you had to create a human, what would you put them through to make them tough? It probably wouldn't be a really chill life.
Yeah.
What would you put them through to make them patient? You probably wouldn't give them things immediately. And so it's like, we want these traits, but each of the traits has a price tag attached to it. And it's just like, do you want to pay the price tag to get the thing? And so I think if people reframed the period of life that they're going through as the price that they're paying out of their wallet, but their wallet is their time, it's the seconds of life that they're trading for it, then I think more people would be willing to make the trade. Because at least when I look at myself, like when I'm 80 something years old and I'm looking back on my life, I want to have these traits. But in order to have those traits, I know I have to go through these things. And I think for me, that's given me a lot of comfort in hard times.